Hey folks, it's Cameron from the Brushfire Mind, and this is coffee. If you check out the link down below in the description, you can find ways to support us by buying us more coffee. Okay, thanks.
Why don't you go ahead?
Newsom accuses Desantis of kidnapping migrants.
There's a lot to be said about the Martha's Vineyards people and the NIMBYism and all that crap. We're talking about people who really just...
I'm just, hands up. Don't I didn't do it.
And look at that. I fixed the video before people had a chance to comment on it. Anyway, so what we're really talking about when we're talking about things like the lefties up in their shiny palaces and freaking out about having, oh my God, there's brown people in the streets. Well, we're talking about NIMBYism. Not in my backyard. We're talking about the reaction of the same people who not only demand open borders in their political dialectic, but have actually put in place the policies to create those open borders, have done things like depopulate our border patrol and sent them overseas to work on somebody else's borders with reference to the Ukraine conflict. We're talking about these limousine liberals that will scream at you about your carbon footprint and how you need to buy an electric car.
But they still fly first class and or in their private jet.
And exactly. And a lot. Right? Like, air travel was pretty affordable for a while there. Until, people like AOC decided we need to cancel all air travel. And then all of a sudden we started having some problems that drove up the price of air travel.
Yeah.
And made it super extra inconvenient to do it. So with these criminal aliens, and because we're talking about it and it's in the headline here, I haven't walked down this particular rant recently enough. This headline says DeSantis vows to send illegal immigrants dumped in Florida to Biden's home state of Delaware. What are the rallying cries that we hear from the left when they're arguing for whatever it is they're arguing? Like they're never even really clear on what exactly it is that they're arguing for on the open borders thing, because their leaders know that if they say the actual words, it will destroy them. But one of their ridiculous, fallacious talking points is no person is illegal. Right? I ran into this in college a few times, and I would always say the same thing. You're right. A person is not illegal. People aren't illegal. Laws prohibit activities.
Yeah, actions are illegal.
When you break a law, when you conduct an illegal action, what you have done is committed a crime.
Yes, when you do not immigrate legally, by definition, you have immigrated
illegally. So you're not an illegal immigrant. You're a criminal. And there's actually a little more there. Immigration is a legal process. It is a process of law. There's no such thing as illegal immigration. There's immigration where you apply and seek permission to enter a foreign country to which you do not have otherwise legal access. You're not a citizen. You haven't already made a deal with that foreign country for presence within their borders, et cetera, et cetera. That's immigration. When you are not permitted in a country, and then you ask for permission, and that country's government grants license for entry. That is the process called immigration, and it is a legal process. When you enter a country without going through the process of immigration, you have not immigrated illegally. You have not immigrated. You are conducting an invasion. You are a hostile foreign agent. In the case of criminal aliens coming from Mexico, You're talking about a government which is hostile to ours, the Mexican government, that goes out of their way. You need to understand, Mexican politicians run on platforms like, I will make it easier for you to sneak into America and send cash back to Mexico. Mexican politicians run on invasion platforms. That's a thing. And even more chilling, the same politicians that we're talking about in Martha's Vineyard and the donor class that live there donate money to prop up pro-invasion Mexican politicians. I've gone down that rabbit hole on this show before and shown you that campaign literature. So what you're talking about when you say illegal immigrants, you are talking about the hostile invading forces of a hostile foreign nation. What you're talking about is an act of war. So,
well, the whole, it's not just an act of war. The whole thing is a total act of subversion, because once you go south of our border, it tends to just get more and more socialist, with a couple of notable exceptions. So, I saw one of those Babylon Bee headlines that was like, Mexicans refuse to go to California because they've already left one communist hellhole where the power doesn't stay on. And I'm like, that's, that makes a lot of sense. So here's the thing though. This is absolutely an optics kill shot. I've heard people describe it as such, and I'm going to jump on that bandwagon, because what DeSantis has done, I'm going to go out and say that DeSantis might be the first politician that has correctly learned some of the lessons from Donald Trump. Okay. And in this case, what DeSantis has learned is that when the left, the elites, the oligarchy, pick your term, they've looked down their nose and at us plebs, us little people, and been absolute hypocrites and said that you are some type of racist or bigot or sexist or homophobe or anti-science or whatever, okay? And they've just shoved it down your face. You're
That's right. If you don't want to be prison raped by MS-13, it's because you're a homophobe.
I mean, something like that. That's so everything that they've ever wanted to shove down your throat and shove down your throat and shove down your throat, they have. And if you speak up or complain about it, you're the bad guy. It's not them being pushy. It's you not being willing to take your medicine. And this whole thing with, well, no human being is illegal. That's not even actually an argument. That's a thing to deflect away from the argument, because now you're the bad guy for wanting some type of immigration process where you can just track who's coming in and out of the country. Most people that want the wall don't have a problem with immigration. They just have a problem with, you know, the foreign invader and blah, 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 and all the stuff that Chris said. And so what DeSantis has done here is an absolute optics kill shot, because he's taken their hypocrisy and he's put it on display, and he's done it in such a way that allows the rest of us to smile and kind of enjoy the schadenfreude of it. And this was something that Trump was really, really good at. I understood that Trump was going to be a successful and effective president when he walked away from the Paris Climate Accord, and his statement was, oh no, climate change is a problem. Just bring me a deal that doesn't totally screw the U.S. over, and I'll put us right back in the Paris Climate Accord. And I'm like, oh my, this guy knows how to play the game. He's got this on lock, as the kids say. So I love our live chat. Sometimes, okay, it's always hard to keep up with the live chat because it goes so fast. Sometimes it's dangerous to look at the live chat because it'll just destroy my train of thought. But I appreciate that my regulars, I appreciate that you guys that watch almost every day at least keep the distractions on topic. But anyhow, in this optics kill shot in particular, okay, Because what did you do? Well, I mean, you sent these people to a really nice place.
Yep.
Right? And uh, and now who is it?
It's like the opposite of gentrification.
Right. And who is it that has a problem? And who is it that has a problem with it? The very same lefties that look down their nose and then
these are the very same lefties that talk about how you're all white supremacists and monsters and evil because you're responsible for gentrification, where, God forbid, evil businesses go into
blighted
poor,
areas,
blighted neighborhoods where there are no jobs. Everybody's at risk constantly of violent crime. Drugs are running rampant, and the place is falling apart. Houses are falling apart. The place is just a shambles. And these evil businesses like McDonald's and Target and Walmart come in, and then they start putting up these hipster coffee shops and stuff, and polishing street lights and
repairing windows
and patching potholes and all that. And you evil monsters, you're gentrifying our neighborhood. So
now
these people live in a properly gentrified neighborhood, Martha's Vineyard. You don't get much more gentrified than that without going to Los Angeles. And they're terrified that they're going to be ghettofied.
Well, no, they're not, because they proved that it is in fact possible to rapidly deport a bunch of people that you don't want in your community.
Just throw them on a bus and send them to an army base.
Wait, you mean that works?
Apparently.
I still remember when Jeb Bush was like, well, what are you going to do? Get a couple dozen buses and just deport thousands of people a day? And I'm like,
yes.
Actually, Jeb, that's
we can use electric buses, Jeb.
I know, right? It's like, actually, Jeb, that sounds like a really good start. Now that you mention it,
I mean, if that's just too much carbon footprint for you, I could do it with an ox and a shitload of rope.
Are you tracking on the whole thing? Like Gavin Newsom's in on the act, and I've even started to see memes getting passed around Facebook that are just ridiculous.
Let's get back to that in just a minute, because Legion actually mentioned this, and I was not tracking on this from yesterday. But I got it from Breitbart after Legion mentioned it in the chat there. Venezuela empties prisons, sends violent criminals to U.S. border, says DHS report. And yeah, we should just send these guys to Martha's Vineyard. That's awesome. A recent Department of Homeland Security intelligence report received by the Border Patrol instructs agents to look for Venezuelan inmates released from entering the U.S., according to a source with CBP. The report, reviewed by Breitbart Texas, indicates the Venezuelan government, under the leadership of Nicolas Maduro Moros, is purposely freeing inmates, including some convicted of murder, rape, and extortion. Remember, when they send them to our border, they're not sending their best. They're sending rapists and murderers. Not all. Some, I'm sure, are very lovely people. But,
I see that's the very fine people hoax all over again.
But can you pick a rapist or a murderer? Out of a crowd of, 1,000 people you've never met? I'll take you a step further. I bet you can't pick the murderer out of a crowd of 100 people you know well. The intelligence report warns agents the freed prisoners have been seen within migrant caravans traveling from Tapachula, Mexico, toward the U.S.-Mexico border as recently as July. The source, not authorized to speak to the media, told Breitbart Texas the move is reminiscent of a similar action taken by Cuban dictator Fidel Castro during the Mariel boat lift in the 1980s.
Which is a thing that happened. Oh, no.
Yeah. The report does not state whether... okay, come on. The report does not state whether the released prison inmates were traveling as a cohesive group, but does state it was commonly shared knowledge among migrants traveling to the United States within a caravan in July that many of the Venezuelan migrants in the group were convicts and included hardened criminals. So, like I said, like I was saying just a minute ago, south of the border, politicians are pro-invasion. They run on, we will send you to America to hurt those evil, rich, greedy capitalists.
Yep. They've exploited us. It's not like we're controlled by... It's not like we're an entire continent and a half that's controlled by cocaine. No. It's those evil capitalists that have ruined everything.
Well, and, it might be worthwhile to do a show on what Putin calls the American globalists. And the real reasons for World Wars I and II. Because, everybody knows about Franz Ferdinand, but that's not really why World War I happened. That was just the inciting excuse.
Willowbar says the 80s were 40 years ago. The
Yes.
early 80s were 40 years ago. That the early 80s were 40 years ago.
That's fair.
Oh.
So let's get back to the piece that you were about to talk about. I wanted
because I have a question I want to ask when we get here.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. We're gonna have fun with this one. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Newsom accuses Desantis of kidnapping migrants. In another plea to make headlines, Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat in California, you think, is begging the Department of Justice to investigate Governor Ron DeSantis over sending illegal migrants to other parts of the country.
Okay, so real quick. If the apprehension of criminal aliens is the same as kidnapping, this isn't complicated, then every police officer that should not immediately be fired for having never done his job because he's never made an arrest, and that is his job as a police officer, everyone that has never done that should immediately be incarcerated for kidnapping. If law enforcement, if the arrest and transportation of criminals is kidnapping, every cop should be in jail. And let me clarify that a little bit. Okay? Due process is not quite the issue yet, right? You have to have reasonable articulable suspicion, probable cause, right, to conduct an arrest. But to be arrested and temporarily held or transported, you do not have to have been convicted by a jury yet. And we do that because in the case of dangerous criminals, you don't want to give them time to escape and hide, right? Like, for example, a bunch of murderers and rapists released from a Venezuelan prison with the express purpose of invading the United States of America from hostile foreign territories, right? So when you are dealing with criminals and you have probable cause or reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime, and you arrest and transport those criminals for temporary incarceration, if that is kidnapping, then every FBI agent, every ATF agent, every police officer goes to jail now.
I have the thing back?
Absolutely.
I only needed to get to the third paragraph to make my point. Several individuals who were transported to Martha's Vineyard have alleged that a recruiter induced them to accept the offer of travel based on false representations that they would be transported to Boston and would receive expedited access to work authorization. I urge the U.S. DOJ to investigate whether the alleged fraudulent inducement... God, you know when people use big words to sound smarter than they actually are? Would support charges of kidnapping under relevant state laws, Newsom wrote. And then here's the thing, I'm formally requesting the DOJ. Blah, blah, blah. What DeSantis is doing is cruel. Okay, all right, now that's about as far as I needed to get, okay? Let's just for starters, let's just restrict this to Ron DeSantis for just a moment, okay? Because you're tracking that apparently there's this like whole multi-layered scheme where they were promised all these benefits, and because it's not just that Gavin Newsom and Greg Abbott are being accused of kidnapping. I mean, like, this is full-blown human trafficking that they're being accused of. And that phrase, that phraseology has got a really specific emotional connotation. It's almost like these people have read their Bertrand Russell, and they know that as soon as you accuse somebody of being a human trafficker, the image that you plant in there. You remember when they used to call us a racist and we go, okay, my bad. And then we just got so tired of it. It was like, yeah, okay, fine, I'm racist.
Yeah, whatever.
Sure. Oh, you mean I want you to show up at work on time and that makes me racist? Sure thing, pal, that I'm racist. Okay.
And let's
so
not
when
forget,
they use it, when they use the term human trafficker, there's a very similar emotional connotation that they're trying to bring into it. Okay. So let's just restrict this to Gavin Newsom, not Gavin Newsom, but Ron DeSantis for just a moment. Ron DeSantis is enjoying an absolutely just a meteoric rise.
Yeah.
He's one of the most successful governors Florida's ever had. He has tremendous in-party support. And my guess is he is going to be the Republican nominee with at least a legitimate shot at being the president somewhere around 2032, 2036. That's my guess, okay? And he's going to throw all that away, blatantly committing one of the most offensive felonies possible right in everybody's face. And none of the people that surround him, okay, there are probably 24 people that have hitched their wagon to his shooting star. And none of the lawyers or policymakers that are around him went, Ronnie, yeah, dude,
you sure about this?
You sure? I don't think you want to do this, man.
Because check it out. Nancy Pelosi is functionally above the law, being a Democrat, an elected Democrat. She's above the law. But the Joint Chiefs, sure enough, explained to Nancy, no. If we refuse to use nuclear weapons when the president gives the order, that's called treason, Nancy, and we can't do that.
So then when we get into the deep things, you're actually accusing a governor of somehow orchestrating this scheme to take a bunch of illegal immigrants and publicly human traffic them to Martha's Vineyard. Like, can I get human trafficked, please? Right. Right? And then the whole emotional...
We're human trafficking Mexicans to Martha's Vineyard. Hola, señor. Vengo mis herramientos. Quiero trabajar.
Yeah, sorry, I don't speak Spanish. But then because of that, because you're going to muddy the waters in this way, you've got people like that moron George Takei in the meme that we had yesterday when he was like, I got put on a bus as a child. You mean by a Democrat who sent you to a concentration camp? Because if you think getting sent to Martha's Vineyard is the same thing as getting to a concentration camp during the largest war the planet has ever experienced, you're probably a Democrat, honestly. But no,
we haven't talked about the Japanese concentration camps on this show much. But as horrible as one might think the Japanese concentration camps were, I would like to point something out. McCarthy was right.
Oh, about the communists infesting the government.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. It's been proven later.
And that is also true of the use of Japanese Americans as spies during World War II.
Yeah, look, I'm not trying to go there. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to keep this in terms of just on the surface of it. How stupid would it be? Or let's say I work for Ron DeSantis and I just want to keep working for Ron DeSantis because when he makes it to the White House, I'm probably going to also get a job in the White House. And I get to put that shit on my resume for life.
Or maybe I just don't want to get RICO'd.
Well, not only that. Okay, there's that. Okay, but I'm talking about even in just pure greedy self-interest type of stuff. Okay, like, oh yeah, it goes on my resume. I worked in the White House for 18 months. Okay, you're hired.
Yep.
You know, like, and none of those people said, Ronnie, dude, no. Do you want Merrick Garland like sniffing your underwear? Because this is how you get Merrick Garland to sniff your underwear, right here.
I mean, let's be fair. I don't think that's a hard trick to pull off.
Well, no. Well, he's too old for Pedo Joe, so
that's fair.
And he's not blood related.
Well, and while we're talking about kidnapping, transportation, human trafficking, let's not forget. Okay, Desantis moved 50 criminal aliens up to Martha's Vineyard?
In plain view.
In plain view. Made a big visible deal of it. Biden encourages massive illegal immigration and tries to hide it with secret flights. So the Biden administration,
Peppermint Pasaki,
and we caught them. Not we the American people. They were caught on camera. Right, the agents of the Biden administration admitting to being government agents of the Biden administration and admitting to what they were doing. They were moving illegal immigrants around the country. They were flying illegal immigrants to various points all throughout the U.S. And like I pointed out yesterday, this is how Ilhan Omar got elected. They literally just stuck a voting block on a couple of birds and went and shoved them into the polls.
There's a couple of steps in between, but your point stands.
Well, this is something that the Democrats have been doing for years. It was huge under the Obama administration. What is it? Is it Clarkston in Georgia? There's a city in Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, that it's all immigrants. The whole city is basically a refugee camp. And it's kind of like Decatur. You can't pull over at a parking lot to check your Maps app without somebody coming up to the window and asking for a handout. That happened to me yesterday. I literally pulled into a parking lot and didn't even get out of the truck. I pulled in, and no sooner had I put the truck in park and pulled up my app to fill out some paperwork and change the map, when some bum comes up, hey man, you got another cigarette?
Yeah, and I'm going to smoke it.
Where did you even come from?
Yeah, I've got a whole pack of cigarettes.
Sergeant Major says it's Clarkston. I thought so. You know me, when bums ask me for cigarettes, I tell them to do push-ups. I'll give them a cigarette for 20 push-ups. Anyway, but the Biden administration and the Obama administration, right? This isn't new. Have been using criminal aliens, hostile foreign invaders, as pawns, as chess pieces, and putting them in places where they're allowed to vote, or they're used to vote, even if they're not allowed to. Right? These are the same guys that come and drive through the ghetto. I kid you not. This sounds. You want to hear something that sounds racist? This sounds racist as hell. And Democrats do this every election cycle. They get buses and they drive through ghettos with fried chicken and soda pops. And they say, get on the bus, we're going to go vote. And then you get chicken. And I'm not making any of that up. I'm not adding shades of nuance to make it seem more racist. That's what they do. Now, occasionally they'll get cheeseburgers or something, but more often than not, it's literally a bucket of fried chicken, because fried chicken is cheap.
Well, it's good as hell.
And it's good. Oh, yeah. I mean, don't get it twisted. Black people like fried chicken and watermelon because it's delicious.
Yeah, the same reason white people like it.
I ate fried chicken and watermelon yesterday, and I will probably do it again before the end of the week. But that's not the point.
I want some fried chicken and watermelon.
Sergeant Major points out the Clarkson is next to Stone Mountain, where pot is decriminalized. Yeah, Funny story that. But it is 8:05. I think we have tacoed this to death. And
just that,
do you have anything else you want to close on?
Just to punch it home that this is one of those things where mock the people that say that this is kidnapping and human trafficking and all that, because it's ridiculous, and continue to point out that the Biden administration has been doing this for months, and they temporarily delayed it when they got caught and then quietly resumed it when they thought no one else was looking. And then when they say, oh, but what aboutism? What aboutism? You know, I've started to really come to the point to where I detest that whataboutism thing, because I've noticed it always gets pulled out in one direction, and it's only when you're pointing out hypocrisy.
Someone needs to grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac.